this is Casey Finn, and this is my video log where I'll be answering your fan questions. So let's get straight to it. First question today comes from Melanie on Facebook. Hi, Melanie. And she asks, did you always know that you wanted to write, or did you have other plans and writing insisted that you did that instead? Now, that's a really good question, and hopefully it'll give you a chance to get to know me a little and my life and my situation. I've always been a writer. I was one of those little kids that was always drawing like comics and stories in the back of my textbooks and things like that. Even when I was like 16, I was still writing stories in the back of my English book instead of doing my work. Not recommended, by the way. Stay in school. So yeah, I always had a very overactive imagination. I was an only child, so I acted out stories at home, like when the door was closed and nobody was looking, just for the sake of, getting lost in my imagination. Reading was a great way to do that, and writing and creating stories was my other outlet for my huge imagination. I went to university not so long back when I was about 19, and I still had a huge passion to write. I was on an English degree for 3 years, and it had a big portion that was all about creative writing in it. Now, unfortunately, when I got there, the writing teachers, not all of them, but a particular few, really influenced me and told me that my writing wasn't good enough, that I shouldn't be considering it as a career, that nobody would want to read the kind of things that I was writing about, that my ideas were too different, too out of the box, these kind of things. And I lost touch with writing for quite a few years there, and about 4 years actually, until I was 23. Did my maths there, did you see? And then I was working, and I hated my job, and I was getting progressively more ill because I have a lifelong illness that's getting a little bit worse every year as I go along, shall we say. I'll talk about that in a different video, but I was getting ill, hated my job, and I started writing again as an escape. And I started writing The Atomic Circus, which was actually the first novella that I ever published. And I got so wrapped up in it, and I wrote thousands and thousands of words, and I enjoyed sort of putting my voice into these other characters. So I came back into writing that way, but I wasn't considering it as a full-time thing. It was a speculation at first. And then in the last year and a half, my personal illness has gotten a lot worse, and I've had to drop out of work and things like that. So it's become a case of writing is pretty much the only thing I do at the moment, the only thing I'm healthy enough to do consistently. So yeah, writing has sort of insisted itself upon my life, and I mean, I couldn't be happier with the results. I'm overjoyed that the thing that I love to do the most in the world is the thing that my health doesn't usually inhibit me from doing. So thank you for that question, Melanie. So Amy from my street team, the wonderful Amy Freeman, asked a question that kind of follows on from this. She says, how do you tune out your physical pain so that you're able to write? I found that quite interesting. I mean, it's not just physical pain that writers might go through, because writers go through all kinds of things that they need to tune out that can, hamper their creativity, like low self-confidence and having those days where your emotions just aren't right and you don't want to write it. So, of course, having my illness and having physical symptoms to deal with really exacerbates that, and it's difficult to ignore if you're in pain. But the wonderful thing about writing is that it takes you to somewhere else, and you can be someone else for a while. And as I said before, when I was sort of stuck in a rut at work and my health was worsening, writing became that escape for me. Once I started putting words down on page, and once you get into that and you're distracted by it and you're typing away, it becomes something else. You're not you in your body with your pain anymore. You are this character, and you're enduring their pain instead, which is great because you can write about their pain. that's not personal to me. That's not a problem for me to talk about sadistically torturing my characters with horrible pain. So I don't think it's a question of focusing too hard on tuning it out. I think it's more about prioritizing the writing, and if you can get into that mode with your characters, if you know them well enough and you're engrossed in that story and that world that you've created, then things like physical pain and emotional factors and stuff, it just fades away for a while you're lost. And that's the power of imagination, really. I think it's a really important thing. So the last question for today is from Azia, who is also in my street team, and she says, what characters reflect my personality the most that I've written, or who do I identify with the most? And it may not surprise you that I identify with characters who are struggling and who are in pain, which a lot of my main characters are. If you look at Caecilius Rex from the Caecilius Rex series from the Atomic Circus onwards, he has horrible scars all over his body that cause him constant pain, and he's quite physically weak for a young man of his age. So obviously I relate to him being different to everybody else and having to struggle just that little bit more to do normal things that everybody else does. Kit Cavendish, my main character in The Mind's Eye, has juvenile arthritis, and she spends when you see her at the beginning of the book, she's in a wheelchair because her legs aren't strong enough to walk. Now, I've been there. I've lived that. It's not pleasant, and it's quite an inspiring thing to be able to write about a character who is trying to return strength to her body and learn to adapt to the fact that she's not like everyone else. So those kinds of characters I really, really relate with. They hugely reflect the struggles that I'm going through in my life, and I think it's quite an inspirational thing to write about people who have difficulties and overcome them. So it always comes off as a good message, I think, in all my work. The characters who reflect my personality the most, however, I would say are probably Monsieur Novell from the Book of Shade, who is, well, I'll tell you the other one and then I'll continue. Stephen Bickerstaff from The Mind's Eye is the other character. They're both really sort of surly and disagreeable. They think that they're better than everyone else, and they're quite superior and sanctimonious in their approach to people. I can be like that. It's probably the worst quality of my personality. When I get on my high horse about something, I can do that. But if you scratch away at the surface and you look at the reasons why these characters have become the way that they are, I think that's where the truest reflection of my personality lies. So for any of you that have read those books, it might be interesting for you to go and take another look at those characters and see what you think I'm saying about myself there. Okay, so those are the questions for today. Really happy with them. Thank you so much, girls. If you would like to leave questions for me, you can leave them in the comments here on YouTube. Oh yes, and I will read them and I will collect them and I will stick them together and I will record a brand new video just for you and your questions. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to me babble on, and if you have an extra 30 seconds, please stay tuned for a fabulous book trailer.